It's the Wednesday Wisdom Show, and you want to know, is altruism a lie? So first of all, what is altruism? How do we think about this? The definition is having or showing an unselfish concern for the welfare of others. Altruistic, as in altruistic acts and motives. Mostly it's thought of by us as actions that are done solely for the benefit of others, meaning that even if it ends up that for the person who does the act, they may benefit not at all or even be hurt by the action, they do it nonetheless because it's going to benefit another. Now, is that possible? Is that something, first of all, that exists latent, perhaps, in human nature? Or is it something that we can rise to and add to ourselves on top of our nature in some way? Basically, Kabbalah says no. It is not possible. It is not, first of all, it is not inherent in us at all. That our nature is absolutely and totally opposed to such, not actions, but such intention in which the welfare of the other is more important than our own. So it's not in us, in our nature, and also, Kabbalah says, it's not something that, given the environment that we live in, can be added to us. That all of the actions that we do in the societies that have existed, except perhaps for one or two, the one that we live in now, and any of them around the world, there is no support for that kind of an action. Even actions that we seem to do like that, like in war, in which we fight, say, for, well, not really for our country. We're probably fighting for our unit, the friends that we have there. There's still an idea of attainment of some type of a heroic quality and an understanding that we are sacrificing something, and through that sacrifice there is a fulfillment, a direct fulfillment of having achieved something that we admire. And so a fulfillment comes to us nonetheless. So in its purest sense, there's no altruism in the sacrifices of a soldier. Also in acts of charity, we can't judge anything by the external actions. It may look as though nothing is really coming to the person who's giving. But if there is some kind of an idea about oneself that, well, I'm good and I've achieved goodness and this is the right thing to do, and I feel fulfilled by at least the idea that I might be a good person, that also is not the pure act of altruism. Now, you must be thinking, what, are you nuts? Why are you talking about it in such a pure way? And the reason is that there's a necessity for this. And there's a pressure for this. In nature itself, there is a kind of pressure on all of us to operate in this way. And in fact, the larger system that we work in and live in does operate that way. So the issue here is really about intention, not about actions, and the measurement or the sense of whether an intention is altruistic, purely intended for the well-being of others. We can't tell this at all by the actions that occur. For example, there is a man with a knife and he plunges it into another person. What's the intention here? And then what is the meaning of the act? Because the intention determines completely the meaning. If a person takes a knife and is intending to harm another or kill another, that's the meaning of that act, not the act itself. And then the same man with the same knife, for the purpose of performing surgery on another, gives it a completely different meaning, and the meaning flows only from the intent. And this is why the definition of altruism in terms of Kabbalah is so discreet. It's so stringent. It either is or it isn't. Because that's the way that this quality called altruism exists in nature. Well, what do we need altruism for anyway? Why isn't the way that we live now good enough with its external actions and its external good? Why do we have to have this kind of behavior in actuality at all? Well, what about human suffering? What about the way that our societies are arranged today? Look at the forces in our societies, even the best of them, meaning the ones that seem to have freedom and have governments that are supposed to take care of the social welfare of everybody. They can't do it. We're at odds with each other. We can't do it. Even systems like socialism and communism, it's not that those things are, bad ideas. They're good ideas. The problem is we are unequal to those ideas. These are not things that can be imposed on us. The inner nature, the absolute quality, inner quality of a person has to be altered to be in alignment with the concept of altruism, with the fact of altruism. Otherwise, none of these considerations about the welfare of the whole can be realities. They just sort of descend into, what they are today. There isn't a single society that has the kind of, in the world today, that has the kind of force and influence that is going to change the nature of a person to be capable of acting that way. But we have to learn to act that way because the pressure is on. The interesting paradox here is that the quality of giving, of altruism, will never appear in the individual unless it's already a quality inherent in the ideals of the society that the person lives in. Because this altruism doesn't exist in the individual. It exists in what connects the individual to others, like an ecosystem that is constantly measuring, balancing, and acting towards what it identifies as its life. In the societies that we live in, for the most part, we see ourselves and identify ourselves as separate individuals contributing to this and to that and benefiting from this and that. But the society has to have a certain form in order to change our ability to be this way, to be altruistic. The society needs to be arranged with and express and reinforce this quality of identification with the whole as the self. That's the way that nature works. The ecosystem sees the entire system as its life. It breathes through the whole system. Human society, no matter what its scale, needs to be like that. We have to identify the whole society as being our life. Now that seems impossible, but we can receive that strength, that power to change from the society if it's arranged properly in the first place. But the misunderstanding that we have is that somehow our society can tell us what is ethical, what's right and wrong in terms of how we think. We can't manage the way that people feel. We can't impose upon people that they should think or feel one thing or another. The point of altruism is that it works for the benefit of everybody regardless of what they feel. and regardless of my opinion of what they feel. But it can't be done as an individual. You can't be a better than everyone else individual. That's not identification with the whole. And we can't simply be subject to laws and rules from the general society. The quality of the society has to be aimed at each individual accepting and loving the other because they identify with the importance of the connection and well-being of the other, that they feel that the doing for others is the doing for life itself. That's not poetic. It's not some far-flung utopia. That is exactly how nature functions. And the only part of nature that doesn't work that way is the human being who identifies only with their own well-being and thinks that somehow something from the outside is going to come and help us. What do you think is going to put our societies together? What do we imagine is going to ultimately bring us to peace? It's going to have to be you. It has to be us. Because unless that quality of nature is felt within us, it won't be peace. We won't feel it as peace. We will continue to suffer. Even though all this seems extremely idealistic, it's very close to us. And it only takes training on the basic ability to experience our connection with others as the place where life exists, as opposed to in the points that we're attempting to connect. This is not science fiction. It's not poetry. It's something accessible. And it happens in a small society that trains itself in order to do this. And it eventually will accrue to the entire society. Because this influence is the most powerful influence that there is. Things do not happen from the physical acts. The physical acts don't change the heart. But the change of intention within the heart changes all physicality and all the relationships. And there is a method by which people can learn this in a small society that actually attains that and then can bring it into our larger societies. And it will catch on like wildfire. So why not learn for yourself?